I'm going to start with telling you what I'm not going to speak about. And I'm not going to speak about innovation systems and innovation structures, because I'm here to be kind of the entertainment of the lunch. And the innovation structures are really interesting, but kind of boring to stand on a stage speaking about them. So I'm not going to speak about that, and I'm not going to speak about Apple and Google cases, which I think are so boring to talk about. Innovation speakers that speak about Apple and Google are truly not innovative. Get some new cases, people. I'm not actually going to talk about definitions of innovation either. I'm gonna start with talking about creativity, because I know you're in the phase of putting this 100 days exploration tour to practice, and you need to build a creative mindset, a creative base for this. And today you're both here in Amsterdam and in Stockholm and Berlin. You're doing these breakouts. You need maybe some tips and tricks on how to work with creativity. And I'm gonna talk to you guys about creativity from my personal point of view. I'm going to build on some experiences I've had with working this for in this field for 15 years, but I'm going to make some personal notes on this, because I think that's going to be more fun for you guys. But first, I want to start with giving you guys a little survey, or doing a little survey with you guys. How many in here, raise your hand, think that creativity is important in business life today? Good. How many in here think they are creative themselves? All right, like half. And how many think that your company is good at working with this? Stockholm and Berlin, no one. Raise your hand. So it's good that I'm here then, and it's good that you're doing this, because then you probably have a need to keep working on this. I think that if you want to create the perfect creative process, you should look into these 4 things. And this is easy enough, 4 things that you can remember. It's methodology. How do you get ideas? What tools can you use? It's knowledge. What kind of knowledge do you need to be creative? The physical space. In what arena are you really working? And does that have an effect on what you're doing? And how your brain works, or how your head works, or how your companions work? And finally, the mental environment. The culture in which you work. The mental sphere, the ideas, the mindset, pretty much. All right, let's do it again. Which one thinks that, if you were to vote on one of these, which one do you think is most important? Raise your hand if you think methodology is the most important one. No one raised their hand, so you know, over there in Stockholm. Knowledge? Not important in any way either. Okay. Physical space? Oh, there's one. Cool. And then mental environment, the culture. Oh, everybody votes for that. It's weird, but I think you might be right. But I think also the other ones are important. I'm going to discuss these 4 topics during this next 30 minutes or what it is. And look a little bit more deep into those. And I'm going to start with the physical space, because I think that's probably the most underrated one of those 4. I think we are a lot more, the physical space is really much more important to what we do than we expect. What do you think about this? Is this a creative environment? It's a PR agency I worked with in Seattle. They have this kind of Disney-like setup. Would you like to work there? Yeah? They're a PR firm, so they work with advertising. I think when I come in there, I get really happy. But at the same time, I think there is still a pretty traditional setup here when it comes to how they're sitting and how they're working and so forth. I usually say that there's two things that I like to see in a good physical space for creativity. It's function and it's inspiration. And I think this place is very much inspiration, but maybe not so much function. This is a place that we helped design. Carlsberg, you were interested in beer innovation. Here it is. We helped them to design their innovation center. And we are not architects, so we were the guys thinking, and the architects were the guys designing, pretty much. And we started with looking at how they worked, the function part. And then we tried to make that inspiring. So this is pretty much their workflow. They usually started with market intelligence. We had a room there stuck with information, reports, TV channels was on. We had magazines, all kinds of new information that you might need, market intelligence and so forth. And they usually have consultants working with that, so we have made a support office that they could sit and work in. Then usually they jumped into the ID generation phase, so we made a room for that, a room where you can sit and stand and where you can write on everything, and the colors are strong and so forth. Then we made a room for the next phase where you start to kind of look at all the ideas. You need to get them up. You need to show some stuff. Lots of whiteboards. You need to get an overview and an organization of all the ideas that you got. Made a structure for that. Then we made what they called a realization center, where you could start building prototypes. And in this case, it wasn't like beer molecules. It was more like the tap, beer tap, or things around beer. The molecule guys were in some other building, actually, with their labs. And then they had a lounge and hero area where they were to celebrate the successes, the things that had gone through, the whole funnel of innovation here. So they had a place for that. And then they had an area where they were sitting daily to work, and this was kind of more the war rooms where they had projects going through. And then they had some other things that I think was really good. This was kind of secret, so it was closed, but they wanted to inspire the rest of the organization that walked through these stairs. So they had one place here which they called the delight point. And there they put up like traces of innovation or things they were working on, so people could touch and feel and be curious about what was happening. And then they also had the wall of fame with their most successful products, to remember where they came from and feel proud and still have the passion, because passion is important. And then they had something that I think was pretty much the best point with that sketch, was that they understood that creativity is an individual thing. They had one guy who looked a little bit like Einstein, actually. He was like 55, gray hair standing all over, and he was brilliant. He worked very much on his own. And they told him that that's all right. You're a good guy. Your potential lies in working on your own. So they made him a room of his own, invention room here over there. And I think that was very brave from Carlsberg, actually, to acknowledge that creativity is an individual thing. Most of the people want to work together, but some people want to work alone. And he was really good, so he got the chance. This is just a picture I saw yesterday. I had to bring it into the presentation. Do you know what this is? Is this a physical space for creativity? This is a space elevator. Do you know right now that NASA will give you $1 million if you have a good idea for a space elevator? Then you get $1 million to build a first prototype. When you're in this afternoon going to think about the future of Vattenfall, I think you should have that in mind, because that is thinking big time and large. And you know what? When I started reading about this on Wikipedia, it's actually a thing that one Russian guy started thinking about really already in 1896 to build space elevators. And today NASA thinks that they're not allowed to bring any more rockets into space because of economy and other issues. So they're thinking about why not build a space elevator so you can drop things into orbit from the top instead of using rockets. And with the coal fiber that they have today, it's actually doable. I'm not sure if that has too much to do with physical space, but I think it was amazing, so I just had to show it today. All right, because this is what I call a creative space. You know what this is? Yes, this is the toilet at Park Hyatt in Tokyo. I was there with my wife, and we of course had to do the Lost in Translation groupie thing and eat at that restaurant where the film is pretty much played out. And I went to the bathroom and I saw this, and I got so excited. So first I started like this spray thing. Felt really good. Soft, a little bit more dim feeling, but still. And then I saw this, and like, it must be for females. I'm not daring to do that one. And then, yeah, I need to dry up a little bit. So, but I also saw this like massage, power deodorizer, like smell coming out, oscillating. I'm not even sure what that is. And front and rear, I also thought that's probably for girls in some way. And I came out and to my wife, and I was like, you have to go to the bathroom. This is amazing. So she said, okay. But first I told her that be careful. There's a lot of buttons, so see what you push. But what I did with this one was that I noticed that when I took the spray version, I remembered one of my friends who's gay, Anders. When he gets drunk, he usually says that you heterosexuals, you don't understand the erogenous zone around number 2. And I was like, yeah. But when I pushed that button, I was like, okay, there is something going on there. So I told her to be careful. But, and she went in there with her jacket on and came out like 5 minutes later, blushing and with her jacket off. And I was like, what happened? What happened? Tell me, did you push all the buttons? And she told me that she started with this one, and it was, here you say, water pressure. It was full up there. So she sit down and pushed the spray button, and I was like, oh, it's too hard. And she had hanged her jacket up on the wall, and she just jumped off the seat cover and sprayed down the whole jacket. So that's why she was carrying the jacket back home. So, but for me, this is a really good example of inspiration and function, because it's truly inspirational. But as you know, using toilet paper is not very hygienic. This is very much function, much more hygienic actually. So find your creative spaces and use them. I actually talked to a big hotel chain the other day, and I told them that invest in these Japanese Toto toilets, because that's going to be a USP bigger than everything else in the hotel. All right, so that was one physical space. The other one, knowledge. Knowledge. You didn't think that was important. I do, actually. But I think there is an important thing to think about here. What kind of knowledge do you need? We've been working with this like 13, 15 years now, and the most common response we get when we ask who are we going to work with in this innovation case, or in building this or developing this. Well, we usually get people that plays soccer on Tuesdays. Who are they? Yeah, they're pretty much guys like me. Or like you. Some, it's becoming better. It's at least some females in that bunch once in a while, but didn't used to be. It's usually guys that are either engineers or business or MBA people. And they're perfect. They're great, but they should not be only them in that group, probably. I'm gonna tell you about a case. This is kind of a matrix that we build to ensure that you're thinking about who should be in a group when you're designing new things. On this level, it's based on the Chi test. I'm not sure if you heard about it. It's one of the most known in the world creativity tests. And one of the basic things it does is look at if you're an adapter or if you're an innovator. And adapters should probably work more with project management, and innovators should probably work more with product development. And on the other axis, we have no knowledge about the subject and a lot of knowledge about the subject. So usually we start out with these guys that we call the innovation starts. They know a lot about the subject and they're innovative. They're usually the ones like you. Fine, we should have those in. Those are really good to work with. But we should also have some of these guys that are probably going to continue working with this, but maybe are not the most innovative ones. And we should probably have some of these that we call ID jokers. People that are really innovative, but are not really stuck in the tunnel of your business. We worked with a oatmeal company. And they had found a fiber that was fantastic. It was good for the stomach, it was good for the brain, it was good for everything, they told me. So they wanted to do a kind of a Intel Inside thing with that fiber. Like sell that fiber to other cereal companies, and they should brand it like we have the heart super fiber inside, like Intel did with the computers. So then we started discussing who should be in that design team. Well, we of course had the product development guys at that company, and girls for that matter. It was a female boss. And we brought in the old boys, which were actually mostly female people working with porridge at schools, old ladies working in school kitchens. We also have had people working from their plants, at their plants. And over here, we brought in people from the Swedish culinary national team of chefs. We brought in marketing people that have worked with Intel Inside solutions before. We also had some just food innovators that made different kind of products in the food industry. And after that session, the female boss came to me and like, Jonas, are the outsiders always better? And I was like, no, your team was really good as well, but it really helps. First, these guys are really good, the ID jokers. But at the same time, I would say the people on the inside kind of raise the level a bit as well when there is outsiders coming in. We're good as well. We want to show off. So think about knowledge and think about the teams you put together. Okay, methodology. You thought that was not important at all, but I'm just going to talk quickly about it anyway. You're having creative sessions. You had creative sessions this morning, and you're having this afternoon. And mostly, we're still working with brainstorming when it comes to methodology in this case. And that was an exercise that an American guy called Osborne found out about in 1952 and wrote it down that there is a creative process that is important to think about when you do things. That was the important part of it. But the exercise in itself was pretty much sit around a table, someone takes notes. You're not allowed to say no. That was pretty much it. Today, there's like 50, 60 years after that point in time, and there's bunches of methods out there to get ideas, but also how to screen ideas and how to enrich ideas and so forth. So please look into that. I met with a researcher a couple of years back, and he had written a thesis where it said that there are more than 200 good ID generation techniques out there in 15 different areas, like situation-based, logic-based, problem-based, role-based, and so forth. So try to look into, try to find as many methods as you can to kind of make your brain work in different ways. So you're sure to cover all the areas that might be important for you guys to succeed in the future. This is just a general view of how ID processes work. You usually start with a need in some form. It's not always obvious what the needs are, but there is always a small human being somewhere there in the back that's going to be using this. For you guys looking into the future of energy, it might not always be obvious who you're working for, but you should think about that there is someone somewhere that should be working with this. And I would say that trusting too much market intelligence or market service in this case could be really dangerous, especially if you work with radical innovation, because the customer usually don't know or can't understand what your industry is going through. One example is mobile tech. Motorola and Ericsson was pretty much on the same level in the early 70s when it came to mobile technology and radio technology. And Motorola did it by the book, asked the customer out there in the US, would you like to carry around your phone to be able to communicate all the time? And what do you think the customer said?
Hell no.
Hell no! That's so stressful. That would be so stressful. I would never want that. And Ericsson, being a Swedish company, very much based on the engineers. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but they just did it. And Motorola is no more, and Ericsson is still #1. So that's the first phase. Then you jump into idea generation phase. This is kind of describing the volume and the flow that we're going through, but as all models, it's a simplification of reality, but could help you guys think about pretty much what the structure is. So this is about getting as many ideas as possible, high volume, maybe getting those ideas of space elevators, because somewhere in between there is something good. Then you go into the screening phase. You start asking some of the hard questions, and you start discussing criteria and what should we really choose from here. Is the most important thing that it should be have this kind of a revenue potential, or should it be realized in 6 months, or is it feasible at all, or should it be perfect for the Dutch market, or whatever? Putting those questions into perspective and kind of forming the ideas out of that. Then you jump into the enrichment phase, where you start building prototypes, or you make business plans, or you maybe do 3D sketches. I don't know. Depends on what kind of industry you are in. And then, of course, in the end, you should reach some kind of a result that is presentable and understandable to the audience you're talking to. This is usually where there is most hearts being broken, because people think that my idea is fantastic, and can't you see it? And people don't really understand. And it can be everything from bad presentation skills to what I think is the most important thing is that people are really bad at thinking about what's the win for the other part. You have to be selling. You have to learn to sell your ideas. Otherwise, they won't fly. We worked with an American company that were based in Scandinavia. And the R&D boss told me that, what's about you Scandinavian guys, especially you Swedes, you're so bad at presenting. Where's your passion? The patents you have here are better than all the US ones. But the Swedes, when they come to present these patents to me, are like, yes, this idea might work. I haven't tested it. I have not really made any kind of revenue prognosis on this. So I don't know, maybe, could be good. And the American is like, this is going to revolutionize the world. And he asked me, so which guy would you vote for? The one with the bad idea, but with the passion, or the one with a good idea, with kind of not like the energy going through in the presentation? And yeah, as a lot of venture capitalists say, that they rather put money in a B idea with an A team than a AID with a B team. So think about that. I'm going to show you this video. This was one of my friends. He had a film company, a film animation company, and they worked very much for TV and doing this, like all the things that pops up in TV and film. And they were doing pretty good. One day, there was one of the guys, the animators, that told him to look at this piece. And he said, what do you think about this? Is this a good idea? Should we do this? And my friend said, no, keep doing what you were supposed to do. All right? Get back to work.
Ding 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 dum dum bum bam bam bum 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 bam 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 rim bran ran ram ba 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 ba.
So what do you say? What if you would have been in my friend's position? Would you say that this is a great idea or this is just some bogus that you made up?
Put it on YouTube.
Put it on YouTube, yeah. I don't think YouTube was actually around back then. That was like 10 years ago or something. This was the Crazy Frog. Have you seen that before? Yeah. It became kind of the first mobile viral telephone signal. Ringtone, yeah. And it developed into kind of TV series and all kinds of commercials. It became a Euro techno hit in, I think, Holland, right? Yeah. In Germany, Sweden, and so forth. So from this crazy little frog, there was 125 millions of euros of business in the end. And how could you know? I think you have an easier task actually there. You still have a very unknown territory in front of you, and you're going to some kind of a paradigm shift. But I think you're still not in media, which is probably the hardest business today of guessing what is good or bad. We're going to end with the factor, the thing that you would all think was the most important, the mental environment. I think it's a little bit tough that you said that, because that's the hardest ones to change. That's the hardest one to work with. It takes a lot of time to change culture. But of course, and it's a little bit soft and fluffy. I mean, it's hard to kind of grasp what is actually a mental environment and how do you work with that. It can be based on nation level, actually. If you look into Richard Florida's books about the creative class, you can see how deep-rooted culture and creativity links together in different ways. But the good thing, I think, is that you guys being part of Northern Europe, we're kind of open to ideas. You don't have that much work to do. I've worked a lot in China, for example, which is, we're supposed to be very scared of China coming. And well, their innovation culture is not very good. Their mental environment is really, really bad, actually, because they've been used to being put to jail if you had an idea that's kind of outside the box. And changing that view of looking on things and innovation it takes time. How many in here are Apple fans? How many have I provoked already? Some. Okay, I'm going to provoke you a little bit more. Sorry, the boss is over here. I'm going to be kicked out. Because all the examples of Apple being the one you should look up to and Steve Jobs being the main figure, I think it's bullshit. Sorry. Steve Jobs, how many have read the Steve Jobs biography? You all know that he was a psychopath. He was maybe a genius, but he was definitely also a psychopath. And trying to copy Steve Jobs, guys, don't do that, please. I think maybe one out of millions could be Steve Jobs and succeed with it. But most of us ordinary guys should not look for a culture with manipulation and sectorism and total illoyalty. I don't think that works for creativity. I still think those good, cozy things like trust and humor and yeah, the things that makes us feel good are good for a creative climate. And I don't think we should all look like Steve Jobs. As I said, I think humor is one of the most important parts, actually, of creating a creative environment. Start by having that first laugh, because that kind of puts your barriers down, and you have a bigger chance of thinking big. So try to get that first laugh. And then there is not all ideas that are good, but as you said, you never know, so you have to put them on the market and try them out and see what happens. A man's dream. Isn't that fantastic idea, actually? Student solution, this is when you're really tired on the sub in the morning. That one, I need the whole winter. Thank you very much.